In our neck of the woods, sports is tradition. Sports is passion. Sports is family. Sports is fun. Welcome to our house. This is Southeast Sports Plus Live with Simone and Gerhard Mathangani.
Well, week 5 of the college football season is upon us, and this one was circled on the calendar well before this week. No doubt about it. It's the big one in Athens, Georgia. Alabama going to go head-to-head for control in the SEC as we roll right along with the Southeastern Conference schedule. Welcome in, everybody. Simone, Gerhard, Mathangani, Patrick Walsh joining you on this Tuesday, Southeast Sports Plus, and another great edition, another great 2 hours ahead, including 3 guests from across Nexstar Nation as we gear up for a big week in the Southeastern Conference. We have coaches losing jobs again in college football this week, Gerhard. It's really that time of season already. We're ramping things up, and it's getting serious.
We've talked about how the calendar gets pushed up a lot as far as recruiting goes, but also as far as it relates to coaches. And everybody talks about coaches that are on the hot seat going into the season.
Yep.
And that hot seat turns into an inferno this quickly. And we've already seen a handful of coaches, including today, lose their jobs there. And so as the games get bigger, as do these decisions to get rid of these coaches, which I think is really, really interesting. But also, these games, if you're a college football fan, you got to love them. Yeah,
it is, no question. When you think about what this game all entails between Kirby Smart, Kalen DeBoer, Kirby Smart certainly has become kind of the new Nick Saban, so to speak. We saw that transition when they won back-to-back national titles. Nick Saban retired a couple of seasons ago, and it seems like Kirby Smart, if there is someone who is kind of still lingering from that traditional type of Nick Saban-esque old school coaching style, he is kind of the guy. However, Kalen DeBoer, kind of the newer coaching style, so to speak, maybe when it comes to softer tone and delivery, but just this week, some of his players have said, hey, there's been some changes in how he is communicating with his guys.
Well, and I think there has to be, because I think that his natural demeanor is one way, but if the results on the field are not mirroring what you want, then you have to change things up. Yes, Kalen DeBoer is a softer maybe by comparison, but you know, going back to through all of his years, maybe he hasn't had to be that hard coaching. Maybe this is, you know, changing up the way that he is coaching. But you mentioned Kirby Smart. He's cut from the Nick Saban cloth, like tooth and nail. He understands that wins in its certain circles. So he knows he's got a young team this year. He has to coach them up with that fiery style, but also understanding they're going to make mistakes. And so being able to balance that is the nuance of coaching. You can't just do it all one way. Every team's a little bit different, and he knows that firsthand.
Yeah, like I said, we have a stacked show. Patrick put in here that it's Taco Tuesday, and I'm just waiting for that to get delivered to the set because we're now at 3 minutes into the show. I've yet to see any tacos. So, Patrick, just let me know when that delivery is supposed to be happening, hopefully sometime in the first block because your girl is hungry.
Gotcha.
Okay, I've had to pick up a protein shake because I haven't even eaten yet. So, guys, this is all I have.
I've just ordered it right now.
Okay, great. So, we're expecting that to become sometime in the next half hour. We'll have that, guys. Here's a look at some other topics we'll be chatting about today, not just tacos, but all throughout the SEC. Of course, the big one there in Athens between Bama and Georgia. A lot going on with Tennessee. They will travel to Starkville looking to bounce back in SEC play for sure. Florida, a lot to be discussed with Florida. What is the latest on Billy Napier and the situation with the Gators? And is there a bit of a family drama going on, so to speak, with the Kiffin family? Have you seen this, G? Because this is okay. Well, at least some folks are looking at social media, Patrick and I, over the last 24 hours because weeks.
I knew the Diego Pavia pop culture, so I'll teach you one thing, you teach me.
Well, this is in the SEC, and if this isn't a tease enough, I'm not sure what is. But if you have not seen the latest in terms of Lane Kiffin's daughter,
Landry, okay,
and who she's dating.
In
the announcement that came at a very sus week, I would say.
And Lane Kiffin's response to the whole thing.
Oh yeah. Okay. You know what?
Well, I was on Lane's Twitter the other day. I saw where he had Landry on there, but I didn't see anything about Weeks.
Oh well. You will.
You
will. And we're going to leave it right to that, guys. Let's look at the guests that we'll have today. And there's no doubt that one of these guests, man, I cannot wait to get her take on this. Chelsea Boucher, she's absolutely going to weigh in on what is going on with Weeks and one relationship situation that's certainly happening in the SEC this week. KCK is going to join us from Knoxville to talk about the Tennessee Volunteers. That'll happen in about 10 minutes. Parker Ream going to join us from Waco to talk about A&M and all the things going on there in the Lone Star State. Meanwhile, back here, further east, I should say. We're, of course, in the state of Alabama. All eyes going into this big game, and quarterback's really a big part of this discussion, Gerhard. We heard from Kirby Smart about Ty Simpson's development. Let's take a listen to what he had to say this week as the Bulldogs gear up for this big one against the Tide.
Well, I mean, Ty's different than Milroe. You said it. So there's a difference in that, but he's a really good athlete. Like, he's a tremendous athlete. He played in games last year, and you watch all the snaps he took, and he has 60, 70, 80-yard runs that are, running down the field, outrunning good defenses. So he's a talented player. I would say he's probably the hottest quarterback right now in all of college football. His 2 last outings, I don't know that I've seen an incompletion. Like, the ball does not hit the ground. He's been accurate. He's been quick with the ball. They're really hard to defend because of their skill. They've got tremendous skilled receivers, backs, tight ends, but you got to have a trigger guy that can get those guys the ball, and they do. And he's seeing the field. I didn't realize, in the Florida State game, it was as messy and sloppy as the weather was at times. Like we were playing a game during that time, so I had no idea until last week. You go watch, and you're like, oh, okay, it was a rainy, sloppy game. In the other games he's played, there's been no sloppiness. I mean, he's accurate, he's quick with the ball, he's a good decision maker, and has made some elite throws. So they're clicking right now offensively for sure.
So a lot to unpack there from Kirby Smart, the head coach of the Georgia Bulldogs, as they gear up for this game against Alabama. And there's no question that when you look at strictly the numbers, what Ty Simpson has been able to do in Alabama's last 2 wins, most recently against Wisconsin, you still have to consider who it is that Alabama was playing in those games. Yeah. However, like we've joked on this show previously, it's difficult to go perfect like Ty Simpson did a couple of weeks ago, and then to go near perfect against a P4 opponent is pretty impressive.
Yeah, if you go to practices, 7-on-7 practices, where you're practicing against the air, it's hard to go 17 of 17 for a lot of these quarterbacks. You'll have a drop here and there. So it says something about both things. And Kirby Smart hit it on the head. It says what the trigger man is doing, being able to get the ball out there, but also his receivers catching the football. Simone, in his last 2 games, he has 5 incompletions and 7 touchdowns.
That's insane.
That is insane.
That is insane.
And so if it was just one game in a vacuum, there'd be one thing, but he's carried it over. You mentioned it. It's not 2 great defenses, but if he could do it against the Kirby Smart defense, not necessarily that level of production, but just carry that confidence and that execution into it, I think he gives Bama a really good shot.
Yeah, there's no question that this is going to be Alabama's first true, not their first true test in terms of competition, but the first true, a good just bar of expectation. What is Alabama really going to be? Of course, the Florida State loss, I have to disagree with what Kirby Smart said, but then we have to keep in mind that Kirby Smart is going to talk like the coach who's gearing up to play this team this week, because that's the same thing he's got to be telling his guys, which is, hey, take them seriously. Hey, this Florida State game, it was sloppy because the weather was sloppy. No, it was probably sloppy because there was no effort from the Tide for most of the game. Yeah. And guys like Kane Womack, well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, these coaches will say the same thing. So a fire had to be lit, and it did, and it was. Will that go ahead and change things going into the SEC slate as we really get into the nitty-gritty? Because right now, nothing has really been lost with that Florida State loss. And by the way, the Seminoles might be good. That might be one thing.
I'm going to take the might be off the table. I think they're a good football team, maybe the best in the ACC.
Yeah, no question. And so I think that is going to be, there's no question it's gut check time for Alabama. Just a couple of years ago, this was a top 5 matchup. These 2 teams have gone back and forth in terms of national championships for a good while now. A little bit of a different situation as it pertains to being the 2 dominant teams in college football, because the landscape has changed, but the amount of eyes and the amount of attention and what can be won by winning this game there's no lackluster there. This is a huge opportunity for both teams.
Yeah, and I think even though LSU is the top team in the standings as it relates to SEC teams, these 2 are still considered the cream of the crop because these 2 have the championship pedigree and the history, as you mentioned. Now, there are 2 new coaches. There are 2 new quarterbacks in this football game, not from last year, but from previous years, obviously. And so I think with that, the names on the helmets and the jerseys still really matter as far as what they bring to this football team, this football game overall.
Sure.
But in my opinion, yes, I think this game will still go a long way to determining who comes out of the SEC, just like it will this year, just like it did in previous years when there were the East and West divisions.
Yeah, over on the other side, Gunnar Stockton is a name that it kind of came onto the radar late last year when there was an injury, of course, there at Georgia, and then we saw Gunnar go into the playoff games during the SEC championship game and do some positive things, and there's really been just a momentum shift for Georgia, for him at quarterback going into this season. Of course, they're undefeated. That notable game there in Tennessee a couple of weeks ago, Alabama and Georgia, but I want to make sure that we note, both both coming off the bye, coming into this game. And when you think about that game against Tennessee, Kirby Smart was the first to say, we shouldn't have won this game. At the end of the day, I think it speaks to what this team is all about, that they can win games in situations on the road. Granted, they'll be at home this weekend, but they have that toughness about them. They have been there, done that experience. That's going to pay off, especially against an Alabama team that, like you just said, has that pedigree and has that experience in playing tough games down the stretch in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a top-down approach there. I mean, Kirby will say that this is all the players who shouldn't have won that game, but no, that's a mentality thing, to be able to go down big and be able to come back and give yourself a chance to win the game. Look no further than the Alabama-Georgia game just from last year. Bama goes up big. I think it goes 30-7 at the half. And then Georgia claws their way back and gives themselves a chance. Bama ends up closing the door, but they give themselves a chance in Tuscaloosa. Now the message for Kirby Smart is we cannot start in the hole like we've done in big games against Alabama last year and against Tennessee this past year. Two different results, one game won, one game lost. However, it just shows you that it shows the guys on tape this past week that, hey, we cannot let Alabama jump out on us this year like we did last year.
Yeah, no question. And I think that for the Tide, you have to get off to a hot start. And that doesn't just mean offensively. It means getting stops early, being able to slow down Gunnar Stockton and all the weapons that he has there as well. Right now, 720 yards this season. He's completing balls at a 70% clip, which is impressive. Granted, they do have an SEC win, because I know that Kirby wants to give all of the credit to the other side, naturally.
Absolutely.
But who have they played is I want to say a little bit just in terms of, like, have Alabama really had a quality opponent? We don't really know what Florida State was in that first week. So on the other end, there is that Gunnar Stockton element. And we did hear from Alabama defensive coordinator Kane Womack about gearing up for this QB1 there for the Bulldogs.
I think they do a really good job with Gunnar in the run game. It's just enough to keep you honest. You see the run game at the right time, certainly third downs and red zone, and those are things that will always be the case for offenses. But he's a physical kid. He's tough. He's gritty. He's willing to get the yards in the read game. He makes the right decisions the vast majority of the time. And so, he has certainly brought an element to their run game that, maybe they didn't have as much with Carson a year ago. And I think that's something that, that certainly we're going to have to account for.
So it's not like that's necessarily the first play call for what Georgia wants to do, but I think that Kane Womack said it best. They're going to keep you honest. He's carried the ball 28 times, 124 yards, and 3 touchdowns this season. So it's not like it's a balanced approach from the quarterback position, but it is one of those, hey, good decision making, trying to not turn the ball over, making the right decision. And on the other side, Alabama has had issues with quarterbacks who do get left alone and get an opportunity to get loose, especially in the middle of the field.
Yeah, they certainly do. And if you remember last year, one of the big safety nets for Jalen Milroe was Ryan Williams in the passing game. And I wonder how much they'll rely on that this week, going into this week. But you mentioned it with Gunnar Stockton. He is not the main running threat that Carson Beck was last year, even though he does pose a threat there. But they have been bringing in all kinds of guys to help bolster that passing game. Zachariah Brench, who had a great game just a couple of weeks ago, and certain others that I think that if you're Kirby Smart, you feel like, yes, before we would just ground and pound, but now they feel like, hey, we can open things up a little bit here at home against this Alabama defense, and if we need to run the ball, we'll run the ball as well, and then test them the way Florida State tested them 3 weeks ago.
So before we go to break, because I know we have several guests coming up on the show, tell me, what does your betting mind say about a 2.5-point favorite for Georgia? I
think the line's just about right, because what this line is telling you is, and it's a little bit different depending on which book you're going with, but what the line is telling you is that a neutral site, these two are basically even football teams, and it's almost a coin flip kind of game. So I think that any way that you bet here, you're not necessarily betting with strategy, you're kind of betting with hope that maybe whoever has the ball last will win the football game. And so if I'm betting, I'm probably live betting it based on the coin flip, who wins the coin toss, and then maybe just taking a chance on, hey, if this team won the coin toss, they'll defer in the second half, so then X team will have the ball. So Georgia will have the ball late, have a chance to win here. But the line, I think the line is very fair. They're telling you it's even teams here. And so I would stay away from an overall game bet. I would do more of a live bet than a game bet.
So that's what the betting side of you says in terms of, like, hey, okay, looking at this in a black and white way. Do you feel like the broadcaster side of you says that the tail of the tape, 3 games in for these two teams going into the bye, not going into this game, says that these teams are even across the board when it comes to what they're able to put on the field offensively and defensively?
I think Alabama at its best and Georgia at its best, yes, they are even teams. I do like Alabama's trajectory right now, especially if they're able to get Jam Miller back and on the defensive side, be able to get Tim Keenan back. Both those guys have not played so far this season. This was the game they were targeting for Jam Miller. So if he can bring a true running threat with everybody else that they have in that backfield that has really been tested, and then on the defensive side, if they can have that Tim Keenan, that run stopper down there below, I think it really changes the dynamic of both the offense and the defense going into this one.
Really, really good points all across the board. Injuries or the lack thereof for Alabama going into this game certainly going to be a factor as they are getting guys on both sides of the ball back for the first time this season. Something to keep an eye on as we gear up for that big one, a night game in Athens between Georgia and Alabama. Meanwhile, Tennessee will look to get back on track after falling to Georgia, and they're going to have to do it on the road, one of the toughest environments, against an undefeated 4-win Mississippi State Bulldog team. We will have the latest on the Tennessee Volunteers and preview this big matchup with Mississippi State coming up in just about 2 minutes. Stay with us. Welcome back in. Southeast Sports Plus rolling right along on this Tuesday. Several big games across the Southeastern Conference, as they often are. I'm not really sure if there's any games that aren't big or significant when it comes to SEC games, especially when you have as talented of a top-to-bottom league right now as we have 16 teams strong there from the SEC. But no doubt that the Tennessee Volunteers looking to be a playoff contender like they were under Josh Heupel last season. And this week, joining us from Knoxville, our good friend Casey K. Thanks so much for your time, sis. I know that you're typically holding it down there with Sam Squared, you know, as the new crew, the group there. So Sam and Sam, and you guys have a great crew there in Knoxville. How's your Tuesday in the SEC world up there?
Tuesday's good. I'm going to be heading out to Starkville this Friday for the Mississippi State game. So I've never been to even the state of Mississippi. So excited for that. Excited to see what Mississippi has to offer. And I'm staying in Alabama in Tuscaloosa, and I've never been to Alabama either. So I'm checking two states off the list this week.
You are. Nice. You are getting like the fun. There's a lot to see in Mississippi. So make sure you don't blink when you're driving through. There's a lot to see when you're driving through, no question. But when you get to Starkville, I will say it is quite the environment. In case you hadn't heard, there's a cowbell situation that happens over there in Starkville, so just be mentally prepared for that. And there's no question that Tennessee is going to be trying to do that under Josh Heupel. Kind of what's the temperature of this team right now after the win over UAB as Tennessee looks to kind of bounce back now in SEC play following the loss to Georgia?
I mean, if you ask Heupel, a win's a win, right? That's what he said after UAB. So a win's a win. Obviously, they're glad to get it. I think they're kind of itching for that big win over a team. Obviously, they had Syracuse to kick off the year, but definitely looking to get a first SEC win under their belt after that devastating loss to Georgia. I think the environment of the team is fantastic. I feel like you just feel it rather than last year. It kind of felt like something was wrong and we weren't necessarily sure what that was off because, they finished 9-3 in the regular season. You go to a playoff game. It seems, looking at the record, looking at the scores that everything was fine, but you could tell maybe there was something a little bit off with the players and the chemistry. And this year is just worlds different. And I think we're seeing that unfold. And I think a lot of it has to do with Joey Aguilar really at the helm of this offense.
How's the preparation been this week? Because I feel like every other season, especially last year, Mississippi State was that look over and prepare for your next week's opponent because that was a guaranteed win. Now it's a really confident Bulldog football team that has won, 100 times, 100% more games than they won a year ago. How's this week been knowing that Mississippi State is really confident and you're going into their building?
I think that Tennessee just has kind of the mindset that no matter who they're going to face, they're going to give it their absolute all, and they're not going to back down to anyone. I think, you look at a team that lost 8 straight, now 9 straight against Georgia, but going into that matchup with the Bulldogs, another Bulldogs team, there was no hesitation. There was no, we can't do this. And I think if they can be like that against a team that they've lost to 8 years in a row, it's going to be no different with any other team. I think that the one concern going into this one is the fact that they're playing on the road. Josh Heupel has not been great in road games over the last 4 years. He's 12-11 in road games at the end of the 2024 season. So basically 500 on the road. He has struggled. He's lost to Georgia. He's lost to Bama. He's lost to Arkansas. He's lost to a lot of SEC teams on the road, and I think that would be my main concern going into this one, knowing that any environment in the SEC is going to be challenging. I think we can look at Oklahoma last year and view that as a positive that he was able to go in there. Obviously, that had a little bit more weight with his history with Oklahoma, but to be able to go into a dominant environment on the road and win, and that was one of the only examples that we have of that with him playing on the road against a tough opponent in the SEC. I think that gives you confidence, but I think it's always going to be a concern until Heupel gets a significant season where he's winning consistently on the road.
Casey, as much as I really love to hear you talk about Tennessee, your guest has made an appearance there in the background of this shot. And so I have to at least ask who it is that, because you have your blurred background on the filter there, but every now and then
there she's coming into it.
She's getting close enough to be a part of the program. Yep, there she is. Tell us a little about the guest that you have here at 2:15 on this Tuesday.
I'll try to get her to come up here. If you call her name's B. She may come up.
B, come on, B. Come here.
You want to come here? Come to Mama.
See?
Come here.
She listens to me
She's
better than my
where
dog.
is that coming from?
B's
well, this. Oh, now you can see her a little bit. This is B. This is a pit bull, so she's a little bit different than the Bulldogs that the balls are going to be playing.
Nice.
But, sometimes I think we should throw her out there, see if she could do it better than Smokey.
Yes.
Running out and running back and forth.
No doubt.
She would be awful. But, I've had her for 3 years. She's a rescue. She's made 4 apartment moves. She's lived in 4 apartments with this job. So she's had quite the little life in 3 years, but she loves Tennessee. She loves Knoxville. Back when I worked in West Virginia in Bridgeport, I used to have her pick which team was going to win on our pregame show for the Mountaineers. So I put out dog bowls, and then I would have peanut butter in the one I wanted her to choose.
Oh my God.
It
was rigged. It was rigged.
Run to the bowl.
It was rigged.
It was rigged.
That's
there
amazing.
There was no way she was going to go to a bowl. She would not have gone to a bowl if there was nothing in it. She's not like a you put food down and she's on it type of girly. Something has to be in it.
Yeah, I feel
so
that.
there was no way.
Yeah.
So, I did have to rig it, but I did not always pick the home team, which would have been WVU. I did make it, which one I thought that she should pick. So it was a little rigged, but it had to be for her to do it. So that was a little inside secret.
Well, I feel like there's at least one person on this set that's going to be slightly offended by that, and that's going to be Patrick, because he is a West Virginia graduate, and so I can just see him sweating over there. He's fuming over this. You're letting him have the dog pick against my alma mater over here.
Well, honestly, I'm gonna pick against my alma mater the rest of the year after the way they played against Kansas this past weekend. Ugh, not good.
He's switched his alliances entirely to Syracuse, who is his team growing up long time, and so West Virginia's kind of taking a back seat at this point. So if Patrick starts having his cats pick games, you can bet that he's going to be putting some catnip in whoever it is that West Virginia's playing against. So.
Hey, they beat Pitt though this year, so that was good for them.
Yeah, that'll keep Rich Rod's job through 1 year.
Oh, well,
go ahead and just beat your rival, and then get stomped by the rest of the Big 12.
I remember a couple weeks ago when you were really fired up about that, Patrick. I was happy for you in that moment. I really was.
It was.
Back to regularly scheduled programming there, Casey. we had to kind of take the scenic route, but Joey Aguilar has seemingly really had a huge impact on this program to this point. When we talk to you and Sam Squared, it just seems as though every single time we do that there's a mention of just his impact, not just on this offense, but on the team and their excitement, their energy level, their buy-in. It's really hard to do that in such an unprecedented amount of time because there's been he just got there. I mean, the guy literally just got there. He just got named the starter kind of at the 11th hour before the season started. And outside of the kind of the toss-up game that could have gone either way against Georgia, this team is really only a made field goal away from being undefeated right now.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I think Aguilar played pretty much the best he could against Georgia. I know you look at the stat sheet, you see 2 interceptions. However, I feel like Tennessee passed way more than they traditionally have against Georgia. They hadn't passed over 200 passing yards against the Bulldogs since 2021, so Heupel's first year. For the last 3 years, they were nowhere near that with their starting QB. So you have a guy who's passing a lot more. He's only in his 3rd game of the season with Tennessee. I don't think that 2 interceptions was that bad when he was still able to put up over 200 yards, multiple touchdowns. I don't think that was a bad showing for him at all. Like you said, a missed field goal and you're winning and you're in it. I honestly think the more concerning part of that was probably the defense on the defensive side of the ball rather than Joey being able to put up 39 points. So I think if you're looking at anything from that one, probably the defensive side of the ball that definitely struggled a little bit more. But I think the fascinating thing about Aguilar is we've seen over and over again that whether it's a quarterback or whether it's a wide receiver, not as much on the defensive side, but really on the offensive side of the ball, people tend to thrive in their second year under Josh Heupel's program. Mm-hmm. And I mean, obviously you can speculate, what if Aguilar by some grace of God gets another year? But for right now, this is his one and only year to make a statement at Tennessee, and he is taking full advantage. He's been able to jump right in and get it done right off the bat in year 1, which we really have not seen. I mean, you could look at Chris Brazzell, wide receiver, as a prime example of it being true in that second year. I mean, he's worlds away from where he was last year. Right now is where everyone was thinking he was going to be last year. Same thing kind of happened with Jalen Hyatt as he developed. Obviously, he didn't transfer in, but as he developed, got benched and then ended up coming in that 2022 season. A year later, he was ready to go in that second year of monumental reps and of significant reps. So I think that Aguilar being able to come in and being efficient and doing what he needs to do in year 1 under Heupel's program is just different than what a lot of other offensive key pieces have been able to do. And I think it's a little bit better than what maybe we would have expected heading into this season. Yeah,
never say never when it comes to eligibility and quarterbacks. Just look at your neighbors to the west. They're a prime example of that. Let's listen to Josh Heupel, what he had to say about this trip there to Starkville.
Yeah, big plays happen because you're able to execute, right? That's going and winning out on the perimeter. It's protection up front. It's quarterback being accurate with the football. They got great speed out on the outside. The red zone efficiency, the quarterback being a part of the run game, the way that they're able to run the football, all of that leads to, that efficiency in that area of the field.
So Josh Heupel, of course, speaking to the Mississippi State Bulldogs offensive attack while having to slow down the big plays there for Mississippi State. Quick side note, is black officially part of the color scheme there for Tennessee? Because Coach is wearing like a black sweatshirt, and I do see like there's black on the screen behind him, but is that like actually because when Alabama fans do that, they start getting kind of a little bit shaky and upset that, hey, like fans are wearing black or coaches wearing black. Like, is that highly accepted over there?
I don't think anyone thinks anything of it, but if it's a part of the color scheme, I would say no.
Yeah.
But I don't think anyone's, being like, oh no, Heupel's wearing black. What are we doing? I think it
That's what happens in
when they wear
Tuscaloosa.
the dark. I think it ties into when they're doing the dark mode jerseys around the Halloween time is usually when they bring those out. So I think honestly people just get excited about having those jerseys that they just see the black and they're like, ooh, dark mode, maybe.
That's cute. I like that. I like that. It's cute. It's very thematic.
Yeah.
One of the storylines going into that Tennessee-Georgia game was the loss of the 2 starting corners with Jamal McCoy and Ricky Gibson. Obviously, they gave up 44. I don't know how much of that was the backups that were in. how has that defense really prepared and really shifted going into this week against another attack that can make big plays, as Heupel just said?
Yeah, obviously, if you look at the defense over the last few years, definitely looking at this year and then the last two, this would be what you think right now is probably the worst out of those three. Not saying that they're bad, just saying that the last 2 years were kind of phenomenal, right? They went on that streak last year where they didn't allow a single touchdown for a stretch of games in the SEC. Like, they were out of this world. And you look at this year and it's a lot of young guys. You look at that. In my mind, against Georgia, you had 3 big opportunities to quite literally not lose. Not even win, but to not lose. You could have stopped the touchdown that was thrown on 4th down. You could have stopped the 2-point, and you could have kicked a field goal and made it. Obviously, we're not blaming Max Gilbert, but that was the 3rd one. So I think you look at that touchdown that was in the end zone. You got Ty Redmond, a freshman, who was supposed to be guarding that one on the secondary, and, makes an insane catch. And then secondary, takes the hit, takes the ball. Same thing. They go to the other corner where Colton Hood is supposed to be doing his job for the 2-point. And, that one gets caught too. So I think that they're trying to rope these young guys in while also trying to get Ricky and Jermon McCoy back. And I think, honestly, at this point, you probably don't want to throw them out in a game like this on the road where you're already going to be, fighting the cowbells and fighting the road game and fighting the fact that Heupel struggles on the road. So I think that it was really good for them to get a UAB performance just to get reps in. I mean, obviously 24 points is not nothing. And Tennessee traditionally hasn't given up that many against, a lower Division I school, East Tennessee last year, looking at the ones that they played, UTEP, Austin P in the past, just other D1 colleges that, aren't in the powers, aren't at the caliber. They traditionally don't let up that many points. However, I think it was a big confidence booster. I think Tennessee is big on confidence, not that any team isn't, but I think it was a big confidence booster, especially with how many young guys. Heupel said after the game that they played 16 true freshmen. I think it may have been 16 freshmen, redshirt and true freshmen in the first half, not talking second half, but he's saying in the first half of that game. So I think you're looking at a very young defense that is building confidence, but is most importantly knows that they're capable and are showing signs of being really, really solid, really young. I think they're worlds. I keep saying that. Worlds. I don't even usually say that. I'm like, worlds away. Anyways, the defense is beyond what they normally are in that secondary at that young age. I think, traditionally that secondary has been a place where Tennessee has struggled. And then the last year you get Ricky Gibson up to speed, you get Jermon McCoy in, and you start to take a jump. And I'm not saying we took as much of a step back as they may have had in previous years, but we definitely took a little step back because we have younger players on the field. But I think that they'll be able to improve more at an exponential rate than maybe what we saw in those first few years in the secondary, because that's really been an area for Tennessee that really hasn't dominated defensively. We've had the linebackers and we've had the line really lead the charge. The secondary has definitely been the number 3 out of those 3 levels. And I think that with these younger guys, and eventually you get Jermon McCoy and you get Ricky Gibson back, it's going to be great. But right now you're just trying to get them at least up to speed to be able to have success in the SEC. So I think morale is high. I think it was great to have that UAB after that Alabama, especially with those 2 mistakes on both sides of the backfield that happened late in the game against Georgia. So I think that they'll be in a good place. We'll just have to see how these freshmen can do playing in a true road environment.
No doubt. Before we let you go, listen, I don't know if you guys know this. I've really, taken to sports betting and really paying attention to the lines, how things have moved, things of that nature. And much is being made of how this game opened at 9.5 points, now down to 7.5.
Yep.
What does that tell you?
It tells me the pro bettors are saying, hey, there's some value at 9.5 points. These two teams are not 9.5 points apart. You're getting a lot of money in on Mississippi State. And because it's early in the week, that's not your average Joes out there. Your average Joes put bets in on Friday nights when they're having, martinis and drinks with their friends.
They're Patrick.
He's
the average Joe.
Saturday morning. So the line movement is telling you that the pro bettors really like Mississippi State at that number. Now it's sitting right at 7.5, which is really interesting to see if it comes back the other way.
That half, man, that half will get you.
It will.
Because that half would have gotten me a win. I didn't even know it, but it would have gotten me a win because I really did think Tennessee was going to pull it off against Georgia. They didn't, but in some capacity and how the betting lines actually work, I would have won. But Casey, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it, ma'am.
Of course.
Looking forward to recapping your experience in Starkville. Make sure you take your Tylenol because you're probably going to need it when this one hits 000.
And let us know which one B picks.
Yeah,
we gotta get B's picked.
We need to start making this like a pretty routine segment. So we would like the video on a regular basis with no peanut butter. It's got to be legit.
I'm like, should we start doing it for her? We do have a pregame show sometimes, depending on where the game is airing. If it's on ABC, we have a pregame show. I'm like, should we have her
Yes,
pick?
I think
and,
we should.
Sam Rothman has a dog too. I'm like, should we get them both involved?
Honestly, that sounds like a party.
I love it.
Yep.
We'll see. And I'm
like
curious if the Cowbells are worse than the Oklahoma Rifles, because those definitely gave me a headache last year.
Really? I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
I don't know. The
they shoot them
Cowbells,
off right next to you.
I'm telling you, it has a lot to do with how the game is going. If Mississippi State is hanging in, they're not going to let up. But if it starts to fade off, if Heupel and company can pull away, then they'll probably go ahead and sit the Cowbells down on the ground for a couple minutes. But Sam, appreciate your time, ma'am, and we will see you next week.
All right, see ya. Bye, guys.
Good stuff.
See ya.
KCK joining us there from Knoxville. Appreciate her input for Tennessee, gearing up for Mississippi State. Guys, we have plenty more to come here on the show. Who is the latest victim of getting fired middle of the season when it comes to the college football landscape? We'll chat about that. Talk about the Auburn Tigers trying to go on the road and get a big win. Plenty more here in the next half hour on Southeast Sports Plus. Stay with us.
Did you see in real time that play with Satanga on the outside, and did you get an explanation from the officials?
Which one is that?
Their Oklahoma's first touchdown.
Oh, the one where we tried to call timeout?
And they pretended to suck him off the field.
Yeah.
Did the officials say anything to you about that?
I guarantee you, well, I better be quiet. Said they didn't hear us trying to call timeout, and we'll see. We were instructed all off season about deception plays and things, so we'll see what's said. I really don't know what will be said about that.
Well, we quickly found out what was said about that, and that was the SEC office releasing a statement saying that there was a mistake made and there would be some sort of repercussions to what happened there in Norman between Auburn and Oklahoma. Of course, if you are just an average viewer, a lot of folks would say there were a lot of missed calls, none bigger than this hideout play that, of course, led to Oklahoma's go-ahead touchdown with the 7-0 score there. There had already been some questionable situations leading up to that point, Gerhard. We were watching the game there at a local place here in a local establishment. And then there was a lot of people who were voicing frustrations, and then some people on the other end who were not minding what was taking place either. But at the end of the day, the SEC front office has said there was a mistake made. Yeah, they reprimanded him, and I think, number one, it was valid, but two, you just felt that the Auburn-Oklahoma game came in with so much juice going into it. Yeah. 2 top 25 teams. They were, both looking for a statement win, and it just felt like at every turn it was the officials huddling up and talking about something. Yes. And for that to be compounded with you getting it wrong on the field, it just made it even more frustrating if you're a football fan in general. And for Oklahoma, of course, they'll take the win. Some of them probably feel like it might be a bit of a hollow win. Mm-hmm. There's some things that Auburn can take away some positives out of it. Sure. They obviously found Cam Coleman a bunch of times, and he had a great game. The defense for Oklahoma had a great game as well. But it just did feel like the officials of this football game just did not have their hands around this game at all. Mm-hmm. And it really showed up in those big spots. Yeah, and you see what Patrick has playing right there. And there was a lot of frustration that regardless of what did take place with the SEC crew and dropping the ball with some calls, is that Jackson Arnold was sacked what ended up being 9 times. Yeah. I think they initially said it was 10 times, and they dialed that back down to 9. But regardless, I think one thing that Hugh Freeze said early when we kicked off this show and he came on, he said, I'm not sure how good we are yet at protecting the quarterback. Yeah. And this guy knows ball. I mean, he's coached at a high level. He's coached a lot of significant offenses. He's also seen if offenses struggle. He knows what type of guys you have to have up front to be successful in the run or pass game to buy your guys enough time. Here's what I would say about that. There were moments that it appeared in my non-football coach mind. I always want to say that I'm not the guy sitting here getting paid $7 million a year to coach college football. Yeah. But it seemed as though there were moments Jackson Arnold had what I would say is a significant amount of time to make a decision or get rid of the ball. Yeah. And he didn't. Yeah. What were your thoughts? Same. There was an internal clock that has to just go off, understanding you have to get rid of the football. And there were a lot of sacks. And every time you see a quarterback and a sack stat, you always blame the offensive line. I don't think it was all the offensive line. I agree with you. I think it was a mutually shared, problem there. And give Oklahoma a lot of credit because that D-line had been, for the last couple of years, not necessarily the dominant D-line. They were getting off the ball quickly against Auburn as well. So there's things to fix on both sides, and I think both sides will admit that going into this upcoming week. And maybe they have to run things out a little bit shorter, or if you're Jackson Arnold, if you have a guy like Cam Coleman, maybe get rid of the ball faster and just go up with it and just play basketball. And that my point in that is that we saw them do that a couple times, and it was almost like the only time that Auburn, and again, not criticizing play calling, I just felt like watching the game, the only time they were going to go do the jump ball situation is if it was being thrown into the end zone. I don't know if that always has to be the case when you have a guy like Cam Coleman who can come back on the ball or can just outman a guy. It's better than taking I would rather have an incompletion if you're Auburn than taking a 4-yard sack or more. The boundary is your friend in those situations, and just if you're going up and going to the sidelines, and just throw it up. I'm like you. I'm not questioning the coaching staff at all, but it just feels like you have an all-world talent whose skills are not being utilized until they get into the red zone. Yeah. But if they struggle to get into the red zone because they're getting sacked all the time and they're facing second and third and long situations, you really put yourself behind the 8 ball, so to speak. Auburn also, they found some running, but it wasn't consistent enough to be able to keep Oklahoma on their heels. And granted, and give it to the Sooners and give it to John Mateer. When they needed to make a long drive and big plays down the stretch, they did exactly that. Yeah. But Auburn really they still hindered. I feel like they still kept Oklahoma from what Oklahoma has been able to do in other games. Oklahoma has been dominant in games. Oklahoma didn't really seem dominant in this game. No. There were a lot of calls that went their way. They were able to get to the quarterback or Jackson held the ball for 4+ seconds. Like, you can't even do that in 7-on-7, man, when there is nobody rushing you. Like, you got to get rid of the ball. I mean, this is the SEC. They're eventually going to get you. And it's almost like demoralizing in the last play of the game to literally get sacked and take a safety. I mean, to me, it was fitting. It was poetic. There's no question about that. But at minimum, I'd have just thrown the ball. I'd have thrown it in the third row and taken a safety like that. from a grounding call, which is probably what they would have given you, than actually get buried in the dirt. It's my personal opinion from a humble standpoint.
And it's got to be especially demoralizing for him. You use that word, and I think it's really fitting, no pun intended, for Jackson, because he did play there, and his last snap is a safety back in his own end zone where he played ball, just a year ago.
Yeah, and everyone that was wearing a red jersey out there was licking their chops to do exactly that. So
no question.
If there's a way to have added motivation or an added just oomph about getting beyond getting to the quarterback, that existed, no question.
No wow.
Auburn will turn the page now, and they will go to Kyle Field there in College Station, 110,000 strong, whatever it's going to be. And right now, again, Texas A&M is a team that certainly wants to be a contender when you get down to the late in the year. They have a couple big wins on the season. Right now, they're a 6.5 point favorite, Gerhard. That number, are you surprised? Is that a big number?
It's not that big. It seems about fair, 6.5. I thought that they might be putting it at 4.5, 5, just to get some money on the Auburn side. A lot of times, especially early in the week, the number isn't necessarily representative of what the odds makers think the game will be. A lot of times it is to see where the money comes in, especially when you see 6.5 or 7.5, right? If it sits right there, because 7 is considered a key number in college football and in the NFL. In the NFL, it's a little bit different because the extra point is now pushed back a lot more, so that 1 point is more of value. But in college football, that 6.5, a lot of times to me, it's to see where that money's coming in. So if they get a lot of Texas A&M money, they'll bump that number up to 7, 7.5, 8. If they get a lot of Auburn money, they'll bring it back down. I think it'll close at about 5, 4.5, 5, somewhere in there. But it does seem interesting to me because I think that there's going to be a lot of people who just watch that Auburn game that just load up on Texas A&M, and I think that could be a sucker bet for some people.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
I would think so too.
The last time they saw Texas A&M, they in a primetime spot, they had a really good game against Notre Dame.
Yep.
And the last time they saw Auburn, they were not very good on the road, and I think a lot of people will just naturally assume that Auburn will put back-to-back bad road performances together.
Something just surprises me a little bit about this game, and maybe I shouldn't be surprised. I don't really know what typically the value of a ticket would be, but this ticket to get into this game is only $150. It's $150 to get into to be able to go watch this game. Is that surprising? Is that low? It seems low.
That does seem low.
This game has had some recent very dramatic history, as we know.
And maybe it is 150 because they do seat 112 or whatever it is. Maybe it's just because there's more seats available.
Yeah, it's actually listed as 102. I don't really believe that. I
don't believe that either. But it's a good look here at the overall series. Obviously.
And last year, 4 overtimes. I mean, that was
games.
Insanity. Yeah, that was of course under Coach Freeze. But you go back to 23, and the game that happened there. It was the year before that. When did Homie get fired?
Cadillac Williams. That would have.
Oh shoot, that was 22.
Yeah.
Man, because Coach Freeze has been there for 2 years.
Right.
Whew.
Yeah.
Time flies when you're having a good time here, not only on the show, but also in the SEC all the time, guys. Just means more. Speaking of which, we're going to take a quick break. We got plenty more to come here in just a couple of minutes. It was, by the way, back there in 2022, that 13-10 victory when Auburn rushed the field, and you would have thought they won a national championship. But that was right after that. Brian Harsin got fired, and everyone was just rejoicing in that, and then seeing Cadillac lead the team there as an interim coach. But anyways, all that to be said, lots of drama. Robbie Ashford, those days are over. And now Auburn will look to right the ship in the SEC when they go on the road back there out west, this time to Aggie land. So we'll have plenty more here on Southeast Sports Plus in a couple of minutes. Stay with us. It's Taco Tuesday, and we're 50 minutes into this show.
The tacos aren't here
Patrick
yet.
has yet to get this delivered, and I'm starting to lose faith in the fact that
I'm
lunch
looking.
today.
Oh no, they can't do it anymore.
Yeah, listen, guys, the Uber Eats order was canceled, but at 4 o'clock, make no mistake, we're getting somebody's credit card to get some tacos. So, guys, the AP Top 25, as it often does, it comes out weekly there for college football, and this week, 10 teams from the Southeastern Conference are in the top 25. Auburn drops out after the questionable loss to Oklahoma. They drop to just the place just outside of the top 25. If you're looking at the voting, top to bottom, whatever.
Right.
What was it that you call that?
Okay, ostensibly. I'm going to teach you another vocabulary word. Ostensibly, number 25.
I've heard you say this, and I'm never learning it. But I will just ask you every time, or I will not say it if you're not there to tell me. Patrick, when we look at the number 25 through 21, let's take a look at these teams here: BYU, TCU, Illinois, Notre Dame, USC. Let's go to the next 5. None of those guys in the SEC, but all right, here we go. So Missouri, Michigan, Vanderbilt, Alabama checking in at 17, and Georgia Tech. Guys,
a lot of this happens to be because Illinois lost, and so when Illinois goes down, of course, those other teams come up. So now you have Vanderbilt as a top 20 football team, which is absolutely crazy. Bama, even though they don't play, they move down in the polls. And
3 spots.
Right. And a
lot just from because somebody played and some people get bumped up, so
correct.
They just by process of the elimination is how they get moved down.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I do think that there's a value in being top 15 just from a number standpoint when it comes to the absolute voters. And so I wonder to feel how much it is between 10 and 15, 10 and 20, how much those polls actually like circle one another, where one person is all the way as high as 16. Or sorry, as low as 16, one is as high as 10 or 11, and how much that skews the actual points.
Well, Patrick made a good point when this first came out, and I'm going to let you make the point, but you were not happy, you were not pleased to see Illinois even stay a part of the conversation.
Back to it right
Okay, break down your thoughts here.
I do not care if Illinois was a top 10 team. I seriously do not, because you just got blown out by 40 or 50?
Yes. Yeah.
And you stay in the top 25.
Who they lose to?
To Indiana.
Yeah.
And Indiana smoked them.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even close. And they did not, 63-10 was the final. It wasn't even competitive. I'm right there with you. Like, you can't be a top 25 team unless you have another marquee win, and they do not.
So, exactly. How do you stay in the top 25 and Auburn loses a close, controversial game to Oklahoma, who just jumped up into, I believe, the top 10?
Yeah. Yep.
And they fall out?
Take Auburn's resume. Auburn's resume is a win at Baylor, and then 2, obviously, Ball State and South Alabama, and then a close loss at Oklahoma. That's their 4 games. By proxy or by comparison, Illinois is a win against Western Illinois, Duke, who we've seen is terrible, and Western Michigan, and then a loss to Indiana. So both teams played. Auburn won a game against a Power 4, and then really, really close. The one team Illinois played, they got dusted off the field by 53 points.
Yep. The most entertaining thing Illinois has done this entire calendar year is try to get in a fight with Shane Beamer in the bowl game.
That is entertaining. I mean, a lot of good points, guys. And if you look at just their loss, okay, that's one thing a lot of people talk about is you look at the loss rather than the wins. Well, do they have a better loss? Because, like you said, it was controversial. It did come under a lot of scrutiny. It came under the conference, kind of pulling back on what it was made a mistake. And by the way, it wasn't by 40.
Right. No.
So all of those things, I feel like you look at who has the better loss.
Right.
Auburn has the better loss, yet Auburn's on the outside looking in.
And I think a lot of the pollsters, because they already had Illinois as a top 10 team, just by pride, they were just like, we can't drop them all the way out. Yeah. So I won't be a bit surprised that they just had them in there just because they, we consider this team a top 10 team. Yeah. And now it looks embarrassing to have this team out of the top 25.
Fair. Patrick, runs through the next 5. What you got?
Indiana at 11. Tennessee down there at 15.
And they were 15 last week, and they stayed at 15 after the situation. They're beating UAB.
Yep.
Yeah. Cyclones over at 14 there. Ole Miss.
He's like Cyclones. I'm like, wait, who's that?
You and the Cy-Hawk Trophy a few weeks ago.
Hey, you know what? Y'all weren't wrong about that. That was like a baseball score, though.
It was.
Yeah, Patrick was like, did you see this score? we were playing golf when that game was being played, I think. We were playing golf.
Yeah, we were playing golf. I had the game on, and you were like, dude, turn this game off.
I literally was painful. I was like, I'd rather listen to white noise than I would listen to this. Whatever was happening here is painful.
Iowa State football.
Ole Miss stays right there at 13 as they get ready for this big game against LSU in a battle of unbeatens. Texas Tech and Indiana. The next 5 as we count down this last hour of the show: Texas A&M, Florida State up to 8th, Oklahoma and Oregon. So definitely some Some hot shot teams there, Texas A&M.
And what I really like about both Texas and Texas A&M is that it makes, obviously that state is so prideful about football, but I love when they are, college football is in a good place when the Texas schools are up in the polls. But look at Oklahoma. They went from last year a really bad season. Now they have a single-digit number by their name.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, I think they deserve that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I think they certainly deserve that.
Yeah.
I do think that Auburn's kind of getting hosed like they did on Saturday when it comes to they got hosed twice.
Yes.
But, let's look at the top 5 before we wrap things up here. The last 20 seconds. Ohio State, Miami, Penn State, LSU, and Georgia. So the race to the national championship certainly wide open, and a lot to discuss as we go into hour 2.
The most fraudulent number 2 team ever. I've said it on September 23rd. Miami.
He does not like the Canes. We'll discuss more of that here in the second hour, guys. Take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Outbound transmission?
Affirmative.
Crew ready?
Check.
Signal lock?
Check.
Downstream stations online?
Linked and locked.
Let's light this candle.
Flame on.
In 3, 2, roll show open.
In our neck of the woods, sports is tradition. Sports is passion. Sports is family. Sports is fun. Welcome to our house. This is Southeast Sports Plus Live with Simone and Gerhard Mathangani.
Welcome into our number 2. Breaking news today in the college football world. For the second straight week, we have a fired head coach. This one coming out in Stillwater, Oklahoma, where Oklahoma State head coach Mike Gundy has been fired after 21 seasons. 21 seasons. That's a long time. Yeah. In this day and age, and what we see in college football right now, I'm not sure if there is a longer tenured coach to this point in college football. I don't know if that I'd have to look at the numbers on that, but just running back in terms of where they are in their same school. Correct. 21 years, that's a long time. Gerhard, break down what it is that we know about this with Mike Gundy.
Yeah, this is an interesting situation because, as you mentioned, he is the longest tenured coach there, and you associate everything with Oklahoma State football Barry Sanders and all that with Mike Gundy and what he was been able to put together. And it felt like this team went through phases. That they went through phases of like being one of the best teams in the Big 12 to be in the middle of the pack, and then this past couple of years really, really being down. And Gundy is a guy that he wears his heart on his sleeve. He's an emotional guy just in general. Yep. He's talked about what he thinks from a politics standpoint. He talks about what he thinks about from the NIL standpoint and everything else. And he obviously goes to a school that was at the time when T. Boone Pickens was alive, that was so well funded. And I don't know what's going on with all the finances there now and how it will relate as we jump into the new House settlement rules and how they will relate there. But Oklahoma State just seems to have been falling slowly, and it felt like a death by 1,000 paper cuts more than it did with Brett Pry in Virginia Tech, where it just felt like the house was on fire immediately.
And then when you look at this, I mean, I just pulled up last year's schedule. They started the season with 3 straight wins, and then they ended on nothing but losses. Several enough where you sit here and go, okay, how did you escape that year with your job? You don't win a game, and you beat Arkansas, and we know what Arkansas is. Right. No disrespect to what Arkansas is not. But I think that there's twofold here. One, obviously, just the trend of where you're at. The fact that Mike Gundy is an old school coach. This is a new school football game. Yep. Right. Yep. And so if you're not an old school coach willing to get in on the new school football game, you're probably an old coach looking to go sit on the couch. Or play a lot of golf, like Nick Saban. Yeah. Right. I mean, now Nick Saban was certainly not pushed out. He made the choice to leave. Right. I mean, that's everyone knows how that played out. But Mike Gundy, he was stubborn. He is stubborn. That's part of his aura. It's part of who he is. Yeah. I mean, look at his hair, right? I mean, the guy's stubborn. So he is a figure in sports. They eventually said, hey, this is the time to make the change. And part of that has to be twofold. One, the loss to Tulsa, which is like right up the road. That's not pretty. Right. And then you look just a little bit beyond the road, and you see Oklahoma now in the top 10.
Yeah, and just last week we were talking about a quarterback who was at North Alabama, and then he went over to UCF to just be a student, and then out of nowhere he became a quarterback on Mike Gundy's football team. That was less than a week ago, Simone. And it just
I completely forgot about that. I swear to God. When you started talking about that, I was like, what the heck is he talking about right now? Yeah. I was like, oh my God, we did have that conversation with a guy holding cruise mark. Yeah. They literally went and said, like, hey, man, you played JV ball a couple of years ago. Anyway, any chance you can come out here and just come and revive this real quick?
Throwing footballs with intramurals? Come on over here. Come on over. But
walking over and it's like, hey, dudes, and hanging out.
And it seemed like, okay, back in 2023, this team won 10 games. I knew it was recently. 10 games in 2023 and 12 games in 2021. It just felt like this team, they just kept hitting a ceiling. And it just like they couldn't ever get past that. And that's what I felt like. And obviously when you're somewhere more than 15 years, I think there is something with the school. They're like, hey, we have this loyalty to you. And you hope that those people just walk out very quickly and slowly into the night. And Gundy, as you mentioned, he's not that guy.
And Gundy, I think that the part of this, the timing of this, and him not really getting to go out as this figure is that Oklahoma State, the calendar of what we're doing in recruiting, the situation in trying to, I mean, heck, maybe for them is to flip a roster. Maybe they're trying to say, guys, get out. I mean, who knows? What they were trying to do, though, is trying to disassociate from Mike Gundy with this move. And I don't mean like they're going to go like, kick him in the dirt and like he's never going to be talked about and there's like some big bad blood. It's just Mike Gundy can't be Oklahoma State football anymore. No. And that's what he's been for 2 decades. Yes. And that's not going well anymore. I mean, everyone loves Mike Gundy, but they also love winning. And so that has to take place eventually when the rubber meets the road. It doesn't matter how much you like a guy.
Especially when you see yourself as one of the caliber teams that can compete in a conference now that has been weakened because there's no Oklahoma and there's no Texas. No doubt. And they already lost the Oklahoma game as far as Bedlam goes. They don't have that game anymore. It just felt like this program just needed a shot in the arm. Yeah. And Simone, we do this every time in the offseason when there are coaching vacancies. You rank the jobs. what are the most attractive jobs?
So right now, the 3 that are open.
You have Virginia Tech. You have Oklahoma State. I mean, to me, those are about similar. It depends on the money.
And then the other one, I can't remember what it is, so clearly that doesn't matter.
Who is that? Who's
out west?
It's Power 5, Power 4.
It's UCLA.
It's not UCLA.
UCLA.
I lied. That's a decent job. Well, it depends on the situation.
Yeah. No, UCLA, they are in a decent place.
Except for the fact they have to travel across the entire country to play in their conference, which I think just is going to. But anyone that supports that, I'm adamantly against that until I die.
It's awful.
If you are at UCLA, you live right in the middle of Bel Air. I mean, it's an expensive place to play and an expensive place to live.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're
overshadowed.
Your next door neighbor is the Trojans, who have a much longer history, a much more successful history.
And nobody really cares about college football over there.
No, they don't. They care about the Clippers and the Lakers more than they care about them.
You're dang right. They ain't worried about
and their little brothers
and everything else.
Exactly.
I mean, they're not worried. They are not really worried about football there. I mean, Nico. I am leaving and
I'm a leaving.
Yeah, I am a leaving Knoxville and leaving him in a better place now with Joey Aguilar. Found that out really quickly, and so there's a lot. It's a lot, and so anyway, college football as we know it is a changing situation. It's a changing landscape, guys. It's one of those get right or get left quickly. And honestly, I don't think it's it was just one of those. Probably this is time for Gundy. I haven't read a lot of the ins and outs of what people do, their takes and things. I maintain that you have to disassociate with how things are going, the trends of what a program is like. If it's not trending in a direction that is going to be successful, be able to retain not a roster, but the people who spend money on the program. Right. That matters.
Right. Yep. And to answer your question from before, Kirk Ferentz of Iowa. He's been there since '99. That's the only other tenured coach. Yeah. The longest tenured coaches. And I knew there was one out there that could not. And I was like, Bill Snyder's already retired.
I know
just set the wins record in the Big Ten. For head coaching, I'm pretty sure.
Well, at some point, if you're there long enough, well, if you've done it for 100 years and you just win it just a couple of years, you're gonna have enough.
He's been there for 100 years and he's seen the Iowa Hawkeyes score 1,000 points.
Is Kirk Ferentz a good coach or is he a compiler? I think he's a compiler. He's just there long enough to where you get the wins.
Are we coining that term? Did you just make that up or do people use that?
People use that a lot in baseball when guys just stick around for
forever. We're using it now.
Compiler.
I really love
Kirk
that.
The compiler.
The compiler. Are you just there long enough to just have the stats? Listen, that's part of it, guys. No question. Speaking of coaching, we had some big news in the SEC, but away from college football yesterday when it was announced that Bruce Pearl is stepping down as the Auburn basketball head coach after 11 seasons. Of course, the winningest coach at Auburn, and not because he's a compiler, but because he was quite literally very, very successful in his tenure, in his run there. Of course, was this past season, probably the best season in Auburn basketball history. Of course, a record 32 wins, a trip to the Final Four, 6 or 5 SEC championships, I think, during his tenure, Gerhard. Just a lot of great things to hang your hat on. He already said he's not going to go run for the Senate seat.
That's right.
He's going to be an ambassador at the school, but I think that it seems like the change of hand with his son Stephen taking over is a seamless, so to speak, transition that Auburn is glad to be making, given if he wants to go as Bruce Pearl, then this is the right thing to move.
I think if any university is going to get rid of or going to have a Power 5 coach in basketball or football leave, this is the situation that you want. Somebody that's already in the program, that's embedded, that knows the program, and they've been a part of the build.
Yeah.
Because if you go to Stephen Pearl, if you go to auburntigers.com, you go to Stephen Pearl's page, they list him as associate director, and then the names that he has helped develop. And we're talking about Jabari Walker and Walker Kessler. These guys that are playing great in the NBA right now. Janai Broom, who just have an All-American season. So you have somebody who's helped build the future of Auburn. Todd Pettifer's another guy, and can take Auburn to that next level. And so I think that Auburn thinks that they're leaving it obviously in good hands, and then Bruce Pearl knows that he's leaving it in good hands. And his player is a guy, or his son is a guy that that played for him and that coached for him. We talked about this yesterday. He wasn't handed the associate head coaching role at the very beginning.
He was not.
He earned it. He
wasn't even on really the staff. He was like a strength and conditioning guy. It's not like he just was on the coattails of Bruce Pearl his entire career. I mean, the guy worked his way up. And Bruce Pearl, just look at the way he coaches. If you think he's the type of daddy that's just handing things over to his son, you're probably mistaken. This guy was not silver spoon fed. He earned everything. He helped earn the wins. And Bruce Pearl gave him the credit that was due. And I think he would go the scenic route at times to say, or to make it known, I'm not doing this because we share the same last name. I'm doing this because he's earned it.
Yes.
And I think that if Auburn didn't feel that way, he wouldn't be the head coach.
He wouldn't be there. He would not
Period.
be there.
I mean, Auburn is Auburn.
Right.
Anybody would want that job.
Exactly.
I mean, come on. So I think when I want to talk to Stephen Pearl back during the Final Four and the run in Atlanta, of course, with the Sweet 16 Elite 8 and then to their San Antonio, I asked him, what does this look like someday? Now, did I think that day was going to be 6 months later? Hell no. I mean, I thought it would be I thought it was going to be a long time from now. I think everyone kind of did. The timing of this is still a little bit surprising. I'm not going to speculate. Not going to sit here and ask questions. I mean, at the end of the day, if the man wakes up one day and says, this is not what I want to do anymore, it's his decision to make. He's grown.
Right.
But I do think that the timing is interesting. The decision for it to be Stephen Pearl is not. I think he was ready. The way his response to me, from what I recall from the conversation, was very much that's the plan. Like that's what we are gearing up for. That is the natural progression of what is next here on the Plains. The timing of it's interesting, and I think we'll find out pretty quickly how different does it look. Does it look much different in the win-loss column? And I still think, again, 5-year contract, they want this to work. It's not like they're sitting there trying to say, hey, see if you can do it in a year and then take the interim tag off.
They have pledged that, hey, our future is in the hands of Stephen Pearl, and I think that they have just as much confidence in him because he has been riding shotgun under one of the best resurgences in all of college basketball.
Yeah.
Talked to Jim Dunaway yesterday. He's put it perfectly. Auburn was the worst job in the SEC easily before he got there, and now can he just keep it going? Now, I don't think, obviously, Bruce Pearl, it took him a while to build a Final Four resume and all of this, but he did it at to me, a great clip. I want to leave this graphic up here, Patrick, because the one thing that is not on his resume is a national championship.
Yeah.
So I did an interesting thought experiment of the best coaches in college basketball to never win a national championship. And the names I could come up with, maybe you have a couple more, Mark Few at Gonzaga, Bob Huggins, who was at Cincinnati, then at West Virginia, I know that's a sore spot for Patrick, and John Chaney, who was at Temple. Those are the guys that I could come up with that had a great resume, multiple conference championships, maybe a number 1 seed. Honestly, if it's those three, outside of Mark Few, who's probably the only other coach I'd put on Bruce Pearl's level, if I'm building a Mount Rushmore of coaches that are just right there in a crazy, it's an any given Sunday kind of game because you don't play a series, you play one game. I think if Auburn played a series last year in the Final Four all the way through, Auburn would have won. Yeah. Auburn was the best team in America, but because you play one game sample sizes is really small. I think Mark Few might be one, and honestly, Bruce Pearl might be. He's in an argument with one of the best, if not the best, coaches to ever coach that hasn't won a championship.
Yeah, and I mean, I got the chance to talk to him at the Final Four when I went down with the U.S. Basketball Writers Association, and I just remember how calm he was.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, he's been there before. He went with them in 2019 until Kyle Guy just somehow made a shot that got Virginia the national championship that year. But, he was just so calm, and he was just so proud of his players. Because I don't remember what Dylan Cardwell said, but it had him in tears at the press conference that I was in. I don't recall exactly what it was, but, I mean, he was a guy that truly cared about his players, and I'm sure Steven will feel the exact same about it.
Yeah, and I think that they're different in their approach. One is younger, one is more fiery. I think that was one thing they always talked about was that Bruce Pearl was like the loving father figure dad type, whereas kind of Steven was a little bit more of like the older brother, younger, fiery. I mean, Bruce Pearl seemed fiery on the sideline, right, or on the bench, right? He was that way in the games, but the guy was really just a really like lovable person who did have this huge meaningful impact. You watch that goodbye video,
right?
I mean, he's crying the entire time.
Yep.
The entire time he's crying, and that's who he was. He wore his heart on his sleeve. That's what I take away from him on the bench. It's not like fiery, like yelling at you. He's gonna yell at you, but he's gonna hug you and pat you on the butt and say like, "Hey, I love you, guy," every single time, because he really did truly love these guys. I think that what you said, Gerhard, is so important to remember about college basketball. And having played the sport, of course, at a different level, and women's basketball in this day and age is booming more than it ever has at pro level and college level. But the margin of error is tiny. And to make a run, I remember when I talking to Bruce Pearl after both Final Four losses, and I have chills. Wow, I just got chills even bringing this up, is because when I did, it is so exhausting to get to that point. And the elation, I did a one-on-one interview with him after both Elite 8 wins to advance to the Final Four. The elation in doing that is like winning a national title. Because to be one of the 4 standing at that point, you not only have to be good, but the ball has to roll your way.
Yep.
Why do you think Duke should have won. Duke should have won a national championship.
Right.
The ball didn't roll their way.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And then you win Houston. Houston was great. Florida, I mean, if you're picking 4 teams, you're looking at the people that were in that Final Four. Any one of those teams, they could have been 25% across the board. And I don't mean just because there's 4 there. I mean because it could have gone anyway. You get to the Final Four, and at that point, there's so much in that. I think that's why they really do kind of make that a benchmark of success for college basketball coaches. And national championships are just like really the gravy on top. And that is what sets aside the greats of the greats, the Roy Williams, the Coach K's, and the John Woodens. But when you think about that next level, that upper echelon, names will be remembered forever. I think Bruce Pearl is right there because of the Final Fours and the deep runs in the tournament.
Absolutely, because you're able to do it multiple times as well. So that means different cast of characters. And he's doing it in a time where all these guys are getting paid. It's all one and done. And he's actually, been hurt by the one and done as well because, he had hurt being, he's drafted guys and developed guys to be able to go to the pros and have nice, fruitful careers in the pros. But he's coaching one guy in August, and then he is gone by the next May, June, or July.
Yep.
And so it's interesting. But no, I think that his legacy is absolutely cemented, and you're seeing the differences in a guy like Bruce Pearl and a guy like Mike Gundy.
Yeah.
Guys that have been in the game for a really long time, and one going as school record in the Final Four, and another guy going out a little bit sadder. And it just kind of lets you know that if a coach really has some self-awareness about where he is, he makes these kind of decisions. If that's what makes the Bruce Pearl decision so much more, in my opinion, so much better.
Especially with the changing landscape.
100%.
And when you think about college athletics right now, there's a lot of drama. A lot of drama for your mama. And, man, do we have that coming up next. And it's not just because Chessa Boucher is joining the show, because there's always something to discuss. But, boy, do we have something to discuss today. We're going to have that in 2.5 minutes, guys. I promise you, this is a segment that you do not want to miss. We'll have that in just a couple minutes. Stay with us. Welcome back in Southeast Sports Plus. SGP joining you as hour number 2 rolls right along, and there will be a huge matchup this week between a battle of unbeatens in Ole Miss and LSU going head-to-head. And every time we talk about the LSU Tigers, we of course have to try to get with our great crew in Baton Rouge. Several wonderful reporters down there, none better than our girl Chessa Boucher, back on Southeast Sports Plus. Happy Tuesday, ma'am. How you doing?
I'm good. How are y'all?
Oh, we're hanging in. We are hanging in. There's a lot to get to. And before we even talk about football, because honestly, at this point, it's irrelevant. It's a top 25 matchup, top whatever it is their record are matchup, undefeated. I mean, all of the storylines. But there's nothing bigger than Lane Kiffin's daughter hard launching a relationship with LSU's star defensive player Whit Weeks. This happens last night, game week. Chessa, explain what on earth took place in terms of in your sports department when this news broke last night.
It was absolutely wild. We were like, is this for real? Is this, at first we were like, maybe she's just like punking us and like trying to play it cool and like play with her dad Lane. But then we were like, oh no, this is the real deal. Like they're together, hard launch. And I even like the comments under with Whit Weeks being like, oh, that's a cool guy or a nice guy or something. And then she was like, thanks, bud. Like they're flirting there. And then he posted it on his story and we were like, oh, this is for real.
Oh,
this is no joke. So, I mean, I think it's funny because she previously had dated Walker Howard, who was a former LSU quarterback. Walker transferred to Oxford. They were together. The whole rumor was that he stayed an extra year because we knew he wasn't going to play under Jackson Dart. Like, he was the starter. He was the guy. He returned, and he stayed. Then he transfers out. He's now at UL. So, obviously, Landry likes her some LSU Tigers.
LSU folks, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, when a girl's got a taste, a girl's got a taste. So how about that?
Yep.
I was just about to ask you, Chessa, what is it with LSU athletes? They become like celebrities. It kind of started with Joe Burrow, and then it went to Livy Dunn, and now we have Whit Weeks. It's like all these people who become national celebrities right out there, right out of Baton Rouge.
I can say one thing. I don't think that Joe Burrow and Livy Dunn were for the same reason. That's all I was going to say. But go ahead.
No, very different reasons. Very different reasons.
100%. She barely.
But they're known
out. The point remains. Yes.
But it's crazy, especially like Livy Dunn ended up dating Paul Skeens, and Paul Skeens was a stud in his right mind. Again, I agree with Eli. She's famous because of her what she looks like more so than her athletic ability, because she didn't do a whole lot.
Wasn't she kind of like an average gymnast, but above average in other ways that other people?
I mean, she played more than I did in college, so I can't really say a whole
Honestly,
lot.
Probably me too. Gerhard claims these other people.
Other people is me.
I mean, other people's me too. I just want to try to be appropriate. Okay, she's good looking. All right. I mean, we're gonna do. I'm gonna lie about the show. We're not gonna lie about this. She's cute. So I mean, it does seem like the timing of this might be a little sus, because I don't know. You could wait. You could have done it before this week, and then it was like, all right, well, Monday of game week seems like a good idea. But dang, post.
And you know what's wild to me? So last year when Ole Miss came to town, I'm shooting pregame, and I had never seen this before. And at head coach Lane Kiffin walks down the entire sideline and is standing 5 feet from me, almost in the end zone for LSU while they're doing their stuff, and starts jawing with Whit Weeks and Braden Swinson. And I was like, that's weird. Like, one, I've never seen a head coach come down and like watch
jawing, like talking crap.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. And so this is going on, and I was just kind of like, at first I took a picture because I was like, why is he down here? And then by the time I got my camera out, they were like walking away, but I was like, dang it, I missed this opportunity because it was such a moment. And then the hard launch on the week of, I was like, oh.
I mean, when I was younger, I would go out of my way to try to do things to make my dad mad. And so, like, if I could just put fuel on the fire, that's certainly a thing. Like, when you are young, I mean, it was more for me like in high school when I played for my dad. He was my basketball coach. And so if I was like, if I can do something to ignite a fire a little bit, I'm going to do that. When I got to college, I wanted him to send me grocery money. So I try to make him happy every now and then. But but I think that they're doing probably fine in that category, both of them, for that matter. But what this takes a whole nother level of hilariousness, so to speak, when Lane Kiffin responds to the picture on social media and says, take the over. Like, hey, this is going to fire up his guys. It's going to fire up his play calling. Like, they're going to run it up, so to speak, on LSU. Lane Kiffin is so unserious. He's so unserious.
Yeah. Oh, and he's like the master troll too. Yes. I appreciate his canter and his back and forth. Like, I absolutely love that. If I was a head coach, that would be me. I would just have to keep it a little bit more PC, which I think he does.
Yes.
But, like, he's just next level with the troll game.
I know.
So, like,
I know.
I feel like his daughter might be taking a lesson from dad and be like, hey, you think you're good, but let me one-up you, my guy.
Absolutely.
And she did it.
Listen,
Hard launch.
he's witty. He's witty. There's no question about that. When you get ready for this game, I mean, at the end of the day, college football is still a business, guys. Like, this is still a business, and I think that right now you can be witty, right? You can be literally Wit Weeks. You can be the way he's being witty, and you can be witty in the way that like Lane Kiffin's being witty, because these teams are undefeated. But when the clock begins there in this game, like these teams still want to win. I mean, all jokes aside, like there's a lot on the line here as it relates to being able to take a huge momentum shift. Now 5 weeks into the season.
Oh, absolutely. In this game last year, I don't know if y'all watched it, but it went into overtime. LSU didn't lead at all in the regular season. They actually, or in the regular ball game, they ended up taking the lead in halftime and won the ball game with the touchdown pass in the end zone. So that's what's impressive. Ole Miss led the entire regulation, and then Ole Miss goes down, or LSU goes down and ties it up, and then goes and wins it on the touchdown pass from Garrett Nussmeier to Kyron Lacey. So this game was spicy 2 years ago when LSU went to Ole Miss. It was an absolute shootout. LSU had a chance to win it on the last touchdown play. It went through, I think it was Chris Hilton's hands, and it was right there from Jane Daniels to Chris Hilton, and then got the upset for Ole Miss. And then the Ole Miss fans start storming the field, and there were even sections of the field where it was like collapsing because they were climbing on to railings and on like
sounds about right there for Baton Rouge. Yeah.
Yes, and they're just like storming the field, and I was like, for the love of God, I'd never been to an away game where people are storming the field. So LSU fans are crazy, but Ole Miss fans kind of took it up another level. So I think this game is going to mean a lot. I know that I'm excited about the matchup with Lane Kiffin and Blake Baker. Lane Kiffin, we know, is a great play caller, one of the best to do it. And then Blake Baker, what he's done with his defense. I think they're an elite defense. They've only given up, double digits, as in 10 points or less through the first 4 ball games, which has not been a thing here in Baton Rouge since 2020. So I'll take it any day. So, yeah, I think those two are going to be the guys to really watch to see how this ends up.
Absolutely. Chessa, a few weeks ago we had you on, and the world was burning over there over the rumors that Garrett Nussmeier was hurt. It was like, oh, he's out for the year. And then you and Brian had that great moment. Everybody calmed down. And it seems like now there might be a somewhat legitimate injury. What's the latest on Nussmeier and maybe how that injury might affect his play this weekend?
Yeah, Brian Kelly brought it up. Actually, not this past Monday before, leading into last week's ball game against Southeastern, and said that Garrett Nussmeier was dealing with a torso injury, and everybody's like, oh, that's the reason why he hasn't looked the part and this or that. And then we found out this happened in fall camp. So he's been battling this injury. This is nothing new, but Brian Kelly said he's going to play against Southeastern. He's kind of over the injury. He's on the downside of this injury, so it's going to be a different play from Garrett Nussmeier because he is pretty much healthy. And he said that the only time he's going to actually be able to get back to 100%, that's after this week at Ole Miss when they get the bye week. I think what we saw from Garrett Nussmeier against Southeastern, I think it had to do more with play calling and what they were really trying to do with the offense. I think they were being a little bit conservative, being vanilla, and didn't want to put too much out there, especially when you're going to play against a Lane Kiffin and Oxford where you need to maybe save some of those bullets in the gun per se. And so I think what we saw from him against Southeastern, almost had a perfect ball game, threw for over 200-something yards. Looked the part. He looked like the Garrett Nussmeier that we saw from last year. So I think it was a combination of this offensive line clicking, playing as one, getting it out to the weapons and letting them do what they do. And I think that's what we saw, and I think that'll be what they kind of use going forward, especially there in Oxford.
Yeah, it's going to be a big one. A 2:30 kickoff there in Oxford. 13th ranked Ole Miss and LSU now down to number 4 by no fault of their own, just a matter of kind of how the AP pollers are doing things, which, there's a lot of questionable situations with that we talked about earlier on the show. We did hear from LSU head coach Brian Kelly about this matchup as it relates to what they're going to need to get done and maybe where they're a little bit short going into this ball game. Let's take a listen.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about, even the Clemson game, right, Jacques? You feel better about those games because you're taking a defense that can stand up against the environment, going on the road, and all those things. And we're a much more cohesive group. The roster's better, the players are better. Those were good, tough kids that played hard for us, but we're a little short in some areas. So we bring a defense with us. Now we'll have to match. Obviously, I don't know about all the points, but we got to score too. Like we talked about last week. I mean, we can't. Be scoring a touchdown or 10 points. That's not going to cut it in the SEC. So continue to play at the level that we have defensively, and then bring your offense up to the level that it needs to be to win games in the SEC.
So pretty clear cut, Chessa, there from Brian Kelly on what he believes it's going to take to be successful there in Oxford. What did you take away from that conversation? What does he mean exactly by saying that they're a little bit short? Is injury related? Is this depth related?
Yeah, so in the running back room, they already have just a handful of guys. Caden Durham, who's been their running back one, he suffered an ankle injury. They did clarify that it wasn't a high ankle sprain. So LSU has kind of been shorthanded in that regard. I think what we saw from Juwan Johnson had a big game. Juwan Johnson was recruited as a running back, came in, then played DB because they were shorthanded last year, then moved to the quarterback position. He leads the entire state of Louisiana with the most passing yards and passing touchdowns ever in history. Oh. So he's a phenomenal quarterback, but they recruited him mainly to be a DB and a running back. And now this spring he was in the quarterback room learning how to run the system as a quarterback, as a signal caller. And so then this fall they were like, oh, just kidding, we're shorthanded with 2 injuries and a off the field incident with another running back. So they brought him back into the running back room. He had a breakout game this past fall game against Southeastern. I think he's got great vision, but I think Caden Durham has kind of gotten away from what we've seen. Rather than following his lead blockers and going the route he needs to take, he's been doing a lot more cutbacks, and that's been a lot of the struggles running the football. So I think Brian Kelly and them just want to be able to rely upon some guys, and I think having Caden Durham hurt and then having to go to Juwan Johnson and 2 other guys, and that's the only people you have in your running back room, you're a little shorthanded. So yeah. I think they're definitely going to need to establish the run, but I wouldn't be surprised if this offense looks a lot better than what it has through the first 4 weeks. All right.
Great stuff there from Chessa Boucher as we get ready for this huge battle in Oxford. Just for safekeeping, Patrick, let's just see that picture one more time as we go to break here. Chessa, how much is this hard launch going to play a role in this big game, sis?
I am not taking my camera off of record throughout pregame because I know something is coming in there either from Witter Lane, and I'm going to have it on camera.
You know what? And we can't wait to see it, especially if it's not game video. We're going to have it on the show next week. If it is, we can't show. So get something in pregame, no doubt.
I got y'all.
Chessa Boucher, join us from Baton Rouge. Always doing a great job holding it down, ma'am. Thank you so much for your time, and we will catch back up with you after this big one there in Oxford.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys. Y'all have a good one.
See you, Chessa.
All right, good stuff. Weeks. Lane Kiffin's daughter.
By the way,
they're
over under 55.5.
Take the over.
Take the over.
Take the over, Coach says. Take the over. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we are checking in with our guy Parker Ream from Waco as Texas A&M welcomes in an Auburn team who is not happy after going out west a couple of days ago and dealing with some really bad officiating. So we'll have the latest from the Aggies and much more. That's in 2.5 minutes. Stay with us. Welcome back in Southeast Sports Plus. Simone, Eli, Gerhard, Mathangani joining you with breaking news in the Southeastern Conference, and huge news at that. Oklahoma quarterback John Mateer is expected to have surgery on Wednesday. This news just out of Norman a moment ago from head coach Brent Venables. Mateer just led Oklahoma over Auburn a couple of days ago. He's expected to miss about a month. He will have surgery on a broken bone in his right hand. Of course, that's his throwing hand. This is an injury that is said he's said to have suffered in the first quarter of Saturday night's game against Auburn. And so, again, there was no timeline really released by Brent Venables, but folks, including Pete Thamel, are estimating that he will miss about a month of playing time there for the Sooners. And Gerhard, what a blow for a guy who right now is considered one of the Heisman candidates.
Yeah, he walked into that Auburn game as one of the top 5 Heisman Trophy odds favorites, no matter what book you were looking at. But it also lets you know that he gutted it out because, as you said, it happened in the first quarter where he led the touchdown drive at the end of the game, ended up 24 of 36, a little more than 200 yards and a touchdown. So a gritty effort just to finish that football game. But this is really tough news for the Sooners because they just popped into the top 10, really feeling really good about themselves. Key wins over Michigan and Auburn, and now they lose at QB1.
Yeah, and want to bring in Parker Ream. He's joining us from Waco. Well, so Parker, I know that your primary coverage teams, so to speak, obviously Texas Tech, Texas, but Oklahoma's right there. So I know you guys are keeping a close watch on this. And we're just getting this breaking news, so I know that we literally just found this out in the commercial break a minute ago. But I'm reading now that it is a thumb injury, and I have a broken thumb. I had a broken thumb in playing college basketball. I'm not John Mateer. I'm not trying to say that. All I will tell you is that the recovery of a broken thumb is not like the recovery of some random other bone in your hand. I mean, your thumb, there's a lot that can be, especially at a quarterback position, I can't even imagine. But when you dissect this just situation, Parker, how much does this just impact Oklahoma? Maybe was 5 minutes before we heard this conversation.
5 minutes ago, you would have thought that Oklahoma was one of the front runners for the college football playoff. No question. But that's what this affects. Yeah. 5 minutes later, now you're looking without Jackson Arnold. How do you even go about their daily life? I think this changes the whole landscape of it. And what a day for Oklahoma news in sports. Seriously. Right? Just after Mike Gundy.
No doubt, honestly. Could they deal with one more thing up there? I feel terrible for Brian and Holden up there. They're probably losing it.
They're really getting put through the ringer in Oklahoma, I guess, and in terms of their sports departments, just covering all of this action. But this is huge news for not only just the SEC, but college football as a whole. Like you said, Heisman candidate. He's been playing lights out to start this season. I don't know why any Oklahoma fan wouldn't be just calling in sick from work today after hearing this news. I think it's a devastating blow to the Sooners for sure.
And in a way, you're almost like, Gerhard, you've bragged about John Mateer on this show since we started it in the first week of the college football season. You hate it for him. I mean, you say that about guys no matter how they get injured, but you hate it for a guy who's seemingly just. Man, things could just not be going better for John Mateer at Oklahoma.
In multiple ways, because keep in mind, they transitioned this entire offense.
Yes.
Because Ben Arbuckle and John Mateer, they came in from Washington State. They came down together almost as a package deal to come down to transform this offense. They had so many injuries last year, and Parker, the wide receiver room got destroyed last year, and then now it's your signal caller. They have to go back to Michael Hawkins Jr., who ironically played against Auburn last year, taking Jackson Arnold's spot a year ago. Now Arnold continues to move on. He'll go and play against Texas A&M. We'll talk about that game in a moment. But Michael Hawkins Jr. now comes back in. First time for Jackson Arnold last year, and now for Mateer in an injury this year. It just lets you know this wild world that we're dealing with starting quarterbacks.
Yeah, and I'm sure they're going to tell you, next man up, but that's not that always the case.
Yeah.
Right? And I think as much as they want to tell you this, they probably would prefer to have Mateer, like you said, under center, and it's just something they're going to have to adapt to and adapt to quickly. I mean, they're in the thick of SEC play now. It's just a terrible time for that news to drop for the Sooners.
Yeah, and when you think, there's no question that you're right, Parker, when you think about just where we are in middle of September, specifically for where Oklahoma is in their schedule. If you're going to pick a time for this to happen, which you're not going to pick at all, I guess it is going to be going into a bye week, then going into Kent State, and then the next game on October 11th, of course, is the big one against Texas there. So again, not an ideal situation, but the breaking news coming out of Norman just a minute ago is that Oklahoma starting quarterback John Mateer will miss significant time due to a broken right thumb that he is going to have surgically repaired tomorrow. That is from head coach Brent Venables. Shifting to why Parker was scheduled to come on the show, and that is, of course, Texas A&M is a team right now that has a significant win on the road. You think back to that Notre Dame game, and now they're going to welcome in an Auburn Tigers team that, speaking of Oklahoma, they feel very wronged by what took place in Norman this past week. Parker, when you look at this matchup, you saw Auburn against Baylor. What do you think about these two programs as they stand right now?
Well, I think last time we spoke, we were talking about Texas A&M needing this win against Notre Dame, and they went out and got it, which is something that we haven't seen in the past from Texas A&M teams, whether it be Jimbo Fisher, Kevin Sumlin. Now Mike Elko gets that signature win on the road. It was their first ranked win since 2014 on the road, and then first ranked non-conference win in it had to have been 60 years. Really, it had been a while since it happened. So I think confidence is what a lot of people in Aggieland are feeling right now, but obviously they feel wronged by what happened last year at Auburn in that 4 overtime game. So I think kind of getting their get back is what is the main theme in Aggieland right now.
Yeah, you hit on my point there, Parker, because when I think of weird SEC matchups, I always think of Florida LSU, because no matter where those two teams are, pregame is going to be weird, the game is going to be weird, the finish is going to be weird. Auburn Texas A&M is right up there as well, because it feels like no matter what year it is, whenever these two teams step on the field, just odd things happen. What is the situation like over there in College Station as Auburn comes into town? Obviously, this is not like some historic rivalry that goes back forever, but they have played a lot of memorable football games between these two squads.
Yeah, I think there's some recency bias there, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it a rivalry, but you also can see why this game is important to a lot of people on both sides. And I think that's something you saw last year. No matter where the teams stack in the rankings, I mean, A&M had a clear path to the SEC championship if they really just got through Auburn and South Carolina, and you saw that didn't happen. So I think they're not taking it lightly. Coach Elko told us just as much this week that he doesn't know how this game's going to go until they go out there and play it. I think he could say anything that he wants, but when push comes to shove, this game could go either way, and I think that's how everybody's treating it here. No matter how good of a win they had against Notre Dame, just kind of got to go play it on Saturday.
Well, let's take a listen to what Coach Elko wanted to say this week as they gear up for this game against the Tigers.
Yeah, I think just continuing to the best of our ability to point things out in hopes that, at some point you click with a little bit higher level of consistency of performance. Obviously, if I had a better answer, we would have solved it already. And that's not an excuse. It's just a reality. Still extremely diligent at it, still working hard at it, still trying to find creative ways to get it, what with how we teach, how we call things, what we call, what we do, what they're comfortable doing, and just still trying to find that recipe to get that right.
And it does seem as though that when you win, that mental mistakes, there's just not so much of a spotlight on mental mistakes as opposed to when you're losing, right? I mean, if you're losing and there's mental mistakes, then you're under a ton of scrutiny. Look at what happened in Tuscaloosa when they, obviously with Alabama losing to Florida State, and hey, is there a lack of effort? Is there this or whatever? When you're 3-0, going home to begin SEC play, mental mistakes might not seem like a glaring thing yet. I think Mike Elko is seasoned enough to understand that you might want to see this through and correct whatever wrongs he does see. Parker, is there something specific that you can point to or that he is talking about that maybe we just are unaware of because we're not watching A&M as closely as maybe you are?
Yeah, mental mistakes, I think, just come down to limiting explosive plays. And we saw that with Jackson Arnold and Auburn against Baylor, I think. And that's something that he's really harped on and thought that they had it fixed in the early few weeks, but then UTSA and Utah State pop off some big runs, and that's just something that they can't do. So I think a lot of it is mental. It's a lot of those younger players that maybe haven't experienced those mistakes and haven't learned from that yet, but they're hoping to. And I think we'll see if that happens, but I think that's probably the biggest challenge for Texas A&M is limiting the Auburn rushing attack, because obviously, as you all know, that when that gets going, it's kind of tough to stop.
Yeah.
I always have a theory to bet against young quarterbacks going into hostile environments. I had that same thing with Bryce Underwood as Michigan went to Oklahoma, and I had the same thought process as Marcel Reed went to Notre Dame, but he proved everybody wrong in that matchup, myself included. What do you make of his production over the first 3 weeks of football? 2 games at home, 1 game road, and then now playing in a monster game against an SEC opponent.
Yeah, we talked about John Mateer as a Heisman candidate. Why not throw Marcel Reed in there, right? He's played beyond his years, I think, on the football field to start this out. And I think it went through a big quarterback shuffle. It took him a while to get that starting job. Connor Wigman, obviously, over at Houston now. But this is Marcel Reed's team, and I think he really showed it for the first time against Notre Dame. He had that game against LSU last year that everybody was like, oh, maybe this guy could be something. This was the first game where everybody said, this is our quarterback, and he could be one of the best in the country. And I think this game goes a long way towards showing that, too. This isn't an easier game by any stretch.
I want to ask you about one of his weapons in Mario Craver, a guy from the state of Alabama. We watched him there in the Birmingham area. Of course, went to Mississippi State, and in his time there, 17 receptions, 3 touchdowns in the season. I'm not sure how many games he played. I'm not clicking through it, but this year, 20 receptions, 4 touchdowns already. How much of a difference maker has he been for this Aggie program to this point?
Just incredible. I think that's something that's really been holding the Aggies back, at least the offense-wise, through the past couple years, is not having multiple receiving threats. Now they do, right? Casey Concepcion has been incredible, but then Mario Craver, it's like a 1-2 punch. I don't know how you defend against it. So Auburn kind of has that too, right? With Cam Coleman and Eric Singleton Jr. So it's such an interesting matchup for both offenses because I really do think both offenses are some of the best in the SEC, but how do you go about defending that? And I think that's where both teams have some questions and concerns. So we could see a lot of offense, but Mario Craver's definitely going to be a part of that and just a breakout campaign. He was leading the nation in receiving yards at some point.
Yeah, it's like 400 some. I mean, he's put up some impressive numbers, no doubt.
Yeah, this defense gave up 40-something in their last game out. How much of these past 2 weeks have been about, hey, it's gut check time with this defense and being able to stop an Auburn offense that is very frustrated after last week and they want to come in to College Station and score a bunch of points?
That actually might be all of it. I think that's been all the emphasis, and that's something that's been happening since week 1 against UTSA when they gave up over 200 rushing yards. I think that is something where you got to fix those if you're going to be a serious contender in the SEC. And when you start SEC play, you want to start fast, you want to hit the ground running, and that's something that they really got to fix. Even from their captains, they've been saying that too, is that just, it can't happen. And it shouldn't happen with the talent that they have. But ultimately, it just comes down to making plays, and they got to do that.
Parker Ream, appreciate your time today and versatility, of course, talking John Mateer, talking Baylor. He's like plug and play. I mean, Parker Ream's going to come on and he talk about Auburn better than us. We're in Auburn, or at least better than me. But, hey, listen, man, I appreciate your time and your insight, no question. And we will bring it back on as we roll forward into the SEC slate, man. It's going to get wild, as it often does.
Yeah, sounds good. Just let me know if you guys need me to talk any more Oklahoma football. I'll be on standby.
Multi-talented Parker Ream
got you.
from Waco. Appreciate it, sir.
Thanks.
All right, good stuff, guys. We're going to take a quick break and join you for the last few minutes here on Southeast Sports Plus on a Taco Tuesday with no tacos. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Southeast Sports Plus. Of course, Simone, the majority of college.
I thought you were saying the magician. I'm like, you're right. Like, he's opening the show, and I love this. Okay, I'm the magician. Yes, go ahead.
The majority of the SEC, as it relates to the conferences, most of it is all Power 4. Most of it is the SEC. And another guy out of the SEC is getting his chance to be a starting quarterback. Russell Wilson, out of here. How about Jackson Dart? We just saw him a few months ago here in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. Balled out for Lane Kiffin and the Ole Miss Rebels, and then now going to be the starting quarterback for the New York Football Giants.
Which are not New York, by the way.
They're not. They're playing New Jersey.
She's been there.
I just wanted to let you know I went there once, and I found out that they do not play in New York. I just needed to say that.
Good old East Rutherford.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
See, Long Island.
Here's the thing, though. This just makes the Cowboys look so bad.
Yeah, it does.
Wait, okay.
Yeah, it does.
You let Russell Wilson drop 350 on your head.
Is he still with Sierra?
Yes.
Yes, he is.
Okay, you know what? He's winning.
We're talking nothing but relationships on the show today.
Weeks and Landry.
Years
Landry
active.
Wikipedia
has put years active for marriage. For how long they've been together. Years active marriage.
Yeah,
since
it's still
16.
going on.
They're like 9 years strong. Okay, go back to football. Sorry.
It's still going on. But no, I think this is a good opportunity. He balled out in the preseason. He looked the part in the preseason.
Yeah,
All the kids love him. They say he's got aura. His parents talk about, manifesting energy and all that kind of stuff. And so I think that this is going to be a good fit. There's a certain light that goes on the quarterback of the New York Giants just because you're already in New York that I think that he's ready for. And it's going to be interesting, though, because you have Derek Jeter, you got Eli Manning, now you have, Jackson Dart, who can handle that strobe light. But as you mentioned, this does not speak well of the Cowboys defense.
Yeah, and I mean, it just shows that the Giants quarterback position has been in turmoil ever since Eli retired.
Absolutely.
I mean, they thought that they struck gold with Daniel Jones in 2022, and then he just regressed back. He got Brian Daboll.
Now. He's looking good now.
Yeah, I mean, that quarterback position just has to be cursed at this point. I mean,
you had Phil Simms and you had Eli. They're in New York.
It's not as cursed as the Jets, though. No one will ever be the Jets.
That's true.
The curse of Joe Namath.
So Brian Daboll, this is a guy who's got plenty of SEC experience. This is a guy who we've seen down here at the Senior Bowl, and Jackson Dart was at the Senior Bowl.
Yep.
I feel like we got a little bit of a sample size of what it could be. I mean, he was good at Ole Miss, but did we know he was going to go be a starting quarterback in the league this quickly?
I did not think he would be. I didn't think he'd be a first-round pick.
Yeah,
that shocked me. And then now that he's in the rotation as a starting quarterback, 4 weeks into the season.
Does the Senior Bowl know how to call him, or does Senior Bowl know how to call him?
Shout out to Jim Nagy.
Shout out to our guy.
I made the call that he was going to be the best quarterback in this draft.
You did say that.
He's on my fantasy reserves right now.
Well, I might want to put him in the starting lineup, my guy.
I want to get you some tacos next Tuesday.
I would like that. Okay, I would like that. I got kicked out of my fantasy leagues. Don't take any advice from me, but I do know tacos. All right, guys. Thanks for a great Tuesday edition of SES Plus.